we wanted to now travel to a different part of the world and to Arnhem Land in Australia, which is in the northern part of the country on the beach. And we're going to be joined by Ingrid Johanson and Lucy Balanjan Yarawanga, who's from the Bábbarra Women's Centre, which is an art centre specializing in textiles. And then Ingrid and Lucy are going to be doing the presentation together. It's Lucy's first Zoom. And so we're thrilled to be able to have a deeper understanding through her words about her community and the significance of the iconography in their work. Ingrid is a curator and she's been working with Aboriginal communities in Northern Territory since 2013. And she's recently had the exhibition of these women's work travel to Paris, here where I am, at the Australian Embassy. That's now touring to different parts of Europe. And our dream is to bring this exhibition to New York Textile Month. So while I am still knocking on the doors of the UN, if anybody knows of a space or a venue that would like to host such an exhibition, definitely reach out to Ragnar or myself, since we would love to make this happen possibly next year. So because of the time difference, we actually pre-recorded this talk. So we will be streaming it now. And for anyone, again, that has any technical issues, you can always use the link, which I will put in the chat. And it's a beautiful talk. I got to sit through it the other day. And we look forward to hearing from the artist on her own terms, in her own words.
Thank you, Philip, for the introduction. This is Lucy Yarawanga. My name's Ingrid. And today we'll talk specifically about the Aboriginal textile design industry in Australia's Northern Territory. For those of you who don't know, Northern Territory is one northern part of Australia with a very large population of Aboriginal people. So just quickly looking what we're going to go through, that's senior artist Lucy there with a lot of the textiles from her region, Maningrida. So we're going to cover off in this talk about Aboriginal textiles in the Northern Territory, putting that into context. Lucy's going to talk a lot about her work as a senior artist, the way that Indigenous textiles link with country and culture in a very strong and deliberate way. Then we're going to talk a bit about the textile screen print as well as lino cut design process, how that works in remote communities in the Northern Territory. And then we're going to end on the exhibition, which was Jarracharra, which we were both involved with in 2019, which travelled from the remote community of Maningrida to Paris. So I'm just going to start by contextualising what we mean by remote Aboriginal art centres. For those particularly outside Australia might not know about the phenomena that is Aboriginal art centres. There's 47 art centres under the banner of Northern Art Centres under Anchor, which is our peak body. You can see there's obviously a huge amount of different names there. All of them work in different mediums, including canvas, bark, sculpture, prints on paper, as well as textiles, which obviously is the focus for today. And it's probably worth saying that a lot of them in the recent 5 to 10 years have really got into textiles much more in a big way. This is just a snapshot of a few of the art centres in Northern Australia. This is just a few. You can see obviously visually they're got quite a different aesthetic. And as I mentioned, you know, working across different mediums, coming together for art fairs, exhibitions, but it really is quite a unique model for artists to come together and work collectively under one centre. Just a few points on why the art centre model is unique. They're particularly usually non-for-profit Aboriginal-owned enterprises in remote Aboriginal communities. Often they are also keeping places for sacred sacred objects. They operate as art studios, education spaces, and a place for people to come and have a cup of tea, see other friends and family. And I guess most importantly, they work very hard for the artist's rights, as well as ensuring that people are buying art ethically and it's authentic Indigenous art. People might know in Australia recently, there's been a big issue with a lot of Indigenous art actually being produced overseas and not actually giving any dollar back to Aboriginal artists. So this is a model of art centres in remote Aboriginal communities, which are often very, very far from capital cities, that really is supporting artists' livelihoods and supporting their creativity. So we're lucky today to have Lucy Bulanjan Yarrawonga here. Lucy is a senior artist from Bábbarra Women's Centre, where I worked for 4 years, but I don't work there anymore. I've been working across other art centres, some featured on that map there in East Arnhem and in West Arnhem Land. So I've got a bit more of a broad perspective, and Lucy's got very deep, specific knowledge about the Maningrida community and the designs at the Bábbarra Women's Centre. So, Lucy, do you want to tell us a little bit about the languages around Maningrida?
Yeah.
Introduce yourself.
I speak, my father's tongue is Kurugani, and also I speak for my mother's word, Gunaviti. She's from Maningrida. So I've known there were 8 languages from here in Maningrida. But now, I don't know, maybe there's 12 something languages. I talk in 7, maybe 7 or 8 languages from Maningrida. It's called, the first language is Gunaviti. That's Maningrida language. And second, I speak my grandmother's language is Guningo. And the other one I speak Bábbarra, that's my father's language. I speak both. I speak Kurugani and Bábbarra. Yeah, and also I speak Jinang, Ulaki, in Kanapa, all them languages that I ever known the words, but I knew the words. It was my mom told me, and my dad, my stepdad, and my dad. My first dad, I had never seen him, but I grew from my stepdad, and I'm from Mulungimbi, but I stay in Maningrida, where my mother's homeland. Yeah, and my father's homeland is Mulungimbi. So sometimes I go visit my family in Mulungimbi. I know them and they know me. Or sometimes they're on the phone with me all the times. Yeah,
and so it's quite common in the region in Central Arnhem Land that people speak a large amount of languages and have very strong connection with country. Do you want to talk a bit about we put together some photos of country around and how they relate to the textile designs that women create?
Yeah.
So the next few slides are images of country around where Lucy's from, and also how the designs link in with the natural environment.
And I started this design from my mom's dream, and it's Bábbarra. And I didn't steal from anywhere. I just, my mother was telling me, oh, this and that, the story of her, what's that, about that Bábbarra.
So the Bábbarra, the 2 yellow spirits that you can see now on your screen, and they're surrounded by the big rainbow serpent.
When he got hungry, yeah, he was looking for food, but then he smelled something like water sweats.
Mm.
And he ate them all. And then they changed into a stone, and the stone is still there at my homeland, near my homeland, but a bit further. Yeah, so that's the design I do. It's memorized of my mom. And I do the work every single day. I don't leave screen printing. I don't leave Lino. I do like things, you know, screen printing, and sometimes I do Lino all the time. I started this work since 2017, 17, 18, 19, 20. And this is my number 5 years now. I'm still working on, I was a bit sick, but I was at the hospital, got better and came back, still start again. And still on printing Bábbarra all the time, every day.
So this one on the screen now is also Lucy Yarrawonga's design, the Bábbarra spirits. And what have you painted around those, Lucy?
This one here, that's a dilly bag she had. It's a long one.
Dilly bag is a traditional bag woven from natural fibers from the pandanus tree.
Yeah, and that one digging stick where she went to look for the food. Yeah. And so she came back with full of foods for her and the families, and she shared all around the people. He used to be people like us, but the rainbow serpent got bitten them. And they changed it to a stone. Right near the stone, it's in the bush.
And so Lucy's a custodian for that story about the Bábbarra, who were the people who walked on this country before people like you and me now.
Yeah.
So a lot of Lucy's textile designs relate to that, as do all of the other artists across Northern Territory who are painting their designs. This is a 3-color screen design by Janet Marrower, depicting the wind. They all relate back to country and clan. What's this here?
There's a green plum. We used to go out bush when it's like a little bit dry and wet season. We used to go collect some green plums and put them in the billy can or plastic or whatever to make it full. We used to eat them. But when it's true like that, we used to smash them on the rock and eat them. And it's so sweet and nice. And this thing here, what they call manwak, we call it manwak in Buningo. And this is a food that we can eat when we go out to bush, stay there. If we get hungry, we just get them and eat them. This is at the beach. That's near the place. Narilmok. They call the place Narilmok. And this is a palm pandanus. Used to get them and make them colors like red, purple, brown, yellow, orange. And then we used to make basket of this thing and deliberate. And that's Deborah Woodrich. This girl, she went to Paris in 2019, yeah. And I missed that flight too because I was really sick and didn't want to go. So I asked Ingrid Johanson not to come with them. And this design you're looking at, that's Dilibeg from Pandanus. And yeah, and as you see, this picture here at the museum that's next to Women's Center. So that one there with the yellow skirt, that's Janet Marwar and myself talking to kids of this box. Oh, that was in olden time, all the people was painting, and also that 2 canoes. And as you see this, that's my design with the rainbow serpent, a heart, dilly bags, and stones and grass, and people standing or walking around, sharing the foods.
So that part of our presentation showed how all the designs linked to country, linked to ancestral story, and very deep cultural knowledge. And we just wanted to say how that's, so all designs, exactly what Lucy has demonstrated, the artists have very strong cultural permission to depict any of the designs that they're printing on textiles. And people take that responsibility very, very seriously. And it's just showing how strong culture is for a lot of people in the Northern Territory.
Yeah. That's Janet, is it?
So now we're going to talk a little bit about how exactly these screen designs as well as lino print designs are printed in remote Aboriginal communities and how these beautiful artworks become textiles. So that's a few images from the Bábbarra Women's Centre in Maningrida. That's Lucy's design in the top right-hand corner. There's a 9-metre table in the Maningrida studio, and women print on that every day. And there's new designs being made regularly. So the first step.
Sketching.
Yeah.
I'm doing some sketching outside at the back of the Women's Center. So I'm just sketching because Ingrid wanted to take me a photo of that. And as you see me smiling away and doing some sketching, making new screen designs.
And one of the big decisions early on when people have ideas is how many colors is the design going to be, and that makes a difference. Obviously, how many screens, how we need to differentiate the textile that they're designing. So for example, if they want 4 colors, the artist needs to do 4 different layers of the acetate, which you see in this slide. This is painting the clear transparent acetate, the design onto the clear film. This was at Inulluk Art Centre.
That's on Pili.
Yeah, which is West Arnhem Land. Graham Badari's new design.
That's
So
my
that's a
nephew.
2-colour.
That's my cousin's cousin.
That's your cousin, yeah.
Yeah, my family.
So then after we've got the designs painted on the acetate, then they need to be put on screens, and these images are showing.
That's on Pili.
Yeah. These images are showing that the original artist design are then put onto these large format screens, and then they're exposed into the sun, which actually exposes with the emulsion, which is light sensitive, it exposes the artist's original artwork onto the screen and leaves gaps where the brush strokes have been. So when they're screen printing on the table, it allows the ink to pass through. It's quite a laborious and handmade process still out in remote communities. Often community art centres have to just make do with what's available, and the technology in communities is not always first class. So this is how it's still done out here. And then do you want to talk about how we print, how the ladies print?
You see them photos, designs with them girls printing. That's how we do it. We put 9 meters fabrics and then we get the paint, like red paint and white or something like that. We print them like that. As we move on to another gap until we finish. The next we lay the line on screen printing the screen, wash them and put them in the sun, and then when it gets dry, we get another screen and put them. So we finished. So them girls doing some what's this? Red apple thing, red apple leaves, and we can eat them when it gets red. So at the moment, these girls wasn't here from maybe last 2, 3, 4 weeks time. Nothing.
And that's Graham Badari's design from Inyaluk that's come together when you saw the previous images of him painting the work, and that's it aligning on the first print.
That's me, don't I?
Yeah. So then the other type of textiles that are quite common in the remote art centres of the Northern Territory are lino cut textiles, and this is the hand carved lino tiles that the artists will carve and then print by hand onto fabric. These works are by Janet Marawa, another artist from this area here. And that's Raylene Watson printing. And do you want to talk a bit about, Lucy's also a very talented lino artist.
As you see this red and white dress, I'm doing that on lino. So I did put like, you know, I choose the color and doing them printing. It's a billy bong and the fish and some water lilies. So that's a barramundi, I think, or black brim. So they got that online, not online, like they bought it from the shop, some retail shop, and they made a dress.
So a lot of the textiles are printed by hand. They're heat set in communities. So all of the fabrics go through a process of making them heated to make the ink able to be used for projects such as fashion, upholstery, hung as artworks, or a lot of the textiles in the remote art centres in Northern Territory go to exhibitions. So one exhibition that initially we were asked to talk about, which is the first Bábbarra Women's Centre exhibition to go overseas with artists travelling, was the Jarracharra exhibition in Paris 2019.
That's the time I didn't want to go because I was really sick.
Yeah. So unfortunately, there was a lot more ladies who could have gone than were able to go. I was lucky enough at the time to be managing the Women's Centre, and so this was a project that was realised with a lot of effort, and it was very, very exciting to finally succeed. You can see here Lucy on the right-hand side was interviewed by the news. There was quite a difficult process of getting the artists who wanted to travel to France passports for various reasons of bureaucracy and the ladies not having necessarily the right paperwork, which was by and large not their fault. It was a fault of the system, but it meant the First Nations people of Australia really struggled to get passports for their own country, which was fairly outrageous. However, we got over that hurdle, and 2 years working on getting the ladies' passports, we succeeded, and we had the Jarracharra dry season wind opening exhibition at the Australian Embassy. These images of the space when the textiles were hanging. Obviously, it looks a bit empty, but on the opening night, the Australian Embassy said they've never had more people in that space ever. It was quite phenomenal. The reception for the ladies coming from Maningrida to Paris was a real reflection on the interest and respect for Indigenous textiles internationally. And they were very well attended by a lot of UN officials, a lot of government officials, a lot of coincided with Paris Fashion Week. So there were a lot of designers there. It was quite incredible. And the ladies, so we've got Janet Marawa, Jennifer Woodkidge, Jacinta Lami, Elizabeth Kalakala, and Deborah Woodkidge. The 5 ladies are featured in the 40th anniversary edition of Vogue Australia. This is them photographed wearing their own designs on the ambassador's balcony. And you can see that image was Vogue had flown in makeup artists, photographers from overseas just to shoot these ladies. And so it really showed that there is growing recognition and interest in Indigenous textiles and celebrating Australia's Indigenous cultures. The Jarracharra exhibition continues to travel. It travelled to the Brussels, the European Parliament to hang. Unfortunately, the tour of Europe was interrupted by COVID and it was supposed to be ending in New York. However, it is still traveling now, and you'll have to talk with the Bábbarra Women's Centre around the current plans. But obviously COVID has amended those, but it is a real celebration of Indigenous textiles. So, of course, sadly, not everybody could go, but it was beautiful when the ladies came back to Maningrida. They were so inspired by Paris that although mainly the repertoire that the ladies do in textiles and artwork is relating to culture and country from the Maningrida region, they were so inspired that you can see the Eiffel Tower influencing their new textile designs. And this is Deborah Woodkidge with her Pandanus Eiffel Tower, woven from pandanus.
So finished. Thank you.
So do you want to say something, Lucy, about anything else?
No. So Mabon Gamak, that's in Waningo. That's all finished. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to us today. And yeah, we just want to acknowledge as well Bábbarra Aboriginal Corporation, Bábbarra Women's Centre, who obviously a lot of the images and a lot of the stories today are coming from the Women's Centre, the Australian Embassy in Paris, Inulik Arts, who also featured in the presentation, and Anchor, the peak body. And just to conclude, it's fantastic that Indigenous textiles are being taken so seriously now. They're on such a global stage. And they're supporting incredible people like Lucy Aronga to have a bigger creative platform on the global stage. Thank you.
Bye.
So thank you to both Ingrid and Lucy for sharing their stories and showing us their work.